So first of all, thank you so much for coming to the first ever edition of Money Rails. And this is amazing to see a full packed house. And we are at Dev Connect, which is again like really amazing thing. And thank you Dev Connect also for giving us a place inside the Dev Connect event to do our first ever edition of Money Rails. And hopefully there are going to be many big and even bigger future versions of it. A brief about me. I'm Sandeep. Grew up in a very humble neighborhood in Delhi, and when I speak with the people in the Western world, and I say that, oh, I come from humble background, and you will see a lot of people saying that, yeah, we are coming from humble background. But in some of the emerging countries and third world countries, when I was growing up, India was still a third world country. Now it's an emerging market. And when you say, I come from humble background, it really means it's a very humble background. So in US, probably like when you come from a humble background, you still have probably a not so good house, not so good car and all that. And then you say that, yeah, we are just, but in that part of the world, things are very difficult. And apart from other things, the most important thing that I faced growing up is the lack of opportunities. It is like, for example, doing startups in US is very different than doing startups in India. For me, like I've told this story multiple times, when we were starting Polygon, any competitor of Polygon, they would have raised like minimum seed round $10 million, $20 million. We, for the first 2 years, the total money raised that we could raise was 265K, like 265K. And actually, we have a very big relationship with the LATAM, because the biggest investor for us back in the day, out of that 265K, it was Ripio Network here, which is a fairly big, finance company. And so it is really hard, and life has been hard, and it's the most important thing is that my story is not very unique. Like a lot of people coming from LATAM, they would have very similar story like me. And in India also, a lot of people have the same story, and everybody is struggling to have a fair share of the opportunities towards them. But Polygon's story is very unique. I just said that, for the first 2 years, we raised hardly 265K. And in 2021, we were a $30 billion company. And even now, it's like somewhere around $1.5 to $2 billion. And we all know, this is primarily driven by Ethereum having a very hard time in the last 2 years, which became even more harder for the L2s because Ethereum was losing its dominance. I recently tweeted that I feel that the L2s are going to get their dominance back very shortly, and you're going to see that some of the announcements we are going to do today here, but some of the other things you are going to see in the next 1 to 2 months, and you're going to see the kind of institutions that are going to launch L2s will absolutely change the landscape and define the narrative that Web3 is going to scale to the global scale only via L2s. There's no way that the Web3 will scale to the scale of 1 billion users by many of these L1s that you guys are seeing these days. But coming back to Polygon, that Polygon now has become this borderless money rails, moving billions of dollars every month. And I think if some of you guys are following the stats, we generally are doing from $50 billion to $180 to $200 billion of money movement every year, or every month, sorry. And even between that, the most encouraging part is the P2P payments, which makes me feel that the actual end user is getting on blockchains. And this is the first time in Polygon I feel very much at home, because as a DNA, as a founder, my DNA is not very speculative DNA. Like, I don't understand the speculative games that much. So 2021, 2022, when Polygon was really, really big, at that time, what was really driving Polygon? If you remember, it was all these enterprise real-world use cases, right? Whether it was Starbucks, whether it was Reddit, whether it was Facebook, Meta launching their NFTs, and Coca-Cola to all the, probably 60% of the Fortune 500 that time had launched something on Polygon. But what happened? After that, we had the FTX fiasco, and all the enterprises went back. Nobody wanted to touch crypto. The great part about that is now we have stable coins, and with that stable coins, the crypto is actually getting mainstream traction. And there is real-world utility. We are now solving in crypto real-world problems, not the speculative problems, meme coins, and even in DeFi, a large amount of activities around leverage. So now we are doing the real-world activities, and this is where we are very, very much at home. Like Polygon's whole team, me, my leadership team, everybody is there to drive the real-world use cases, and payments, fintechs, banks, large institutions, that is where we feel really at ease and at home. And you're going to see Polygon going absolutely exponential from here. As you can see, I talked about payments a little bit, and right now, even if you go to, let's say Stripe's largest amount of transactions are happening on Polygon. Like in the last few days, what did you all see? You saw Flutterwave, which is the Stripe of Africa, completely moves on to Polygon. Yesterday we saw, or 2 days back, we saw R25, which is Ant Financial, the Alibaba group. They launched a pretty large initiative on Polygon. There is this, one of the largest fund of funds who launched their RWAs on Polygon, and you're going to see more and more. We are going to announce 2 massive, massive things just now today in some time. So Polygon is for merchants, consumers, fintechs, banks, platforms. And in the banks, I can guarantee you, you close your eyes and think about the largest or the biggest finance brands that you can think about. What are the top 5 finance brands? And you will see many of them doing very deep work in Web3 with Polygon. And it's coming in very, very fast. It's happening very, very fast. And that this all means that Polygon is for payments. And I say Polygon is for payments and fintechs because fintechs do something more than payments, also a lot of things more than payments. But primarily, that's our focus area. Payments, payments, payments. Like just at Polygon, we want Polygon to be the #1 place for payments, stable coins, which means stable coins, Forex. And I think we will show you a few stats also. In LATAM, we right now have around 60 to 70% market share in the regional stable coins. In Southeast Asia, we have around 80 to 90% market share on regional stable coins. That's how big Polygon is becoming. I think you guys know that JPYC happened, like the Japanese yen coin. That has the highest amount of activity, and the growth is actually happening on Polygon only. And you're going to see more and more such stablecoin join. So since we are very, very deep into the payments, we actually are in the process of changing the entire DNA of the company to focus on payments. And that's why we have this gentleman who's a star in this space, in the payment space, crypto payment space, John Egan. He has joined us as the head of our product, and he's driving our journey next into this deep and the large multi-trillion-dollar market of payments. John, I would request you to come on stage.
Thanks, Sandeep.
Thank you.
All right, it's always fun to stand in front of a giant picture of yourself. Super excited to be here at Polygon, super excited to be here at MoneyRails. Hope everyone's having a really great time so far. I think when I left Stripe, a lot of just questions came in sort of from all over the media, and in general, we'd really taken Stripe on a meteoric kind of journey into crypto in terms of leaning deeply from a payments standpoint. And the questions that kind of come to me really often are, why Polygon and sort of this world of blockchains and this evolving kind of ecosystem of global money movement, why pick Polygon? And for me, I have to say, looking at it from the other side, it's a very obvious decision. Everywhere we look, to Sandeep's points earlier, when we go talk to banks, when we go talk to institutions, when we go talk to our largest platforms that were moving money globally, it just always turned out that they were on Polygon, or they'd heard of Polygon, or they had a relationship with Polygon. And so I did my homework. I started to dig in, and I want to dig into some of that with you here. When we think about like where Polygon is and where it's going, from being a very early mover in global money movement to what we're just seeing over the last quarter, over the last year, as the traditional finance space starts to move on chain, more and more we're seeing the payments providers specifically are preferring Polygon over every other chain, especially when it comes to everyday payments. And what an everyday payment is these are payments between people, payments that are actually payouts on marketplaces, payments being made for goods and services, generally defined as payments around like $100 and under that. This is actual real commerce happening globally, and Polygon is dominating here. Last month we did almost $1 billion. We'll do $1 billion on chain this month just for these everyday payments. And we had in Q3 about 1.8 billion. I think we're just going to see this number skyrocket over the next quarter. And then if you zoom out a little bit and you think about this space from a wider payments use case, this is like peer-to-peer payment volume on chain. In Polygon, we're seeing like 14.7 billion just in Q3 as 147% quarter-over-quarter growth. These graphs are just getting started. This is the beginning of the world coming on chain, and this is Polygon owning that movement of the traditional finance, commerce, global space onto the globally connected ecosystem. So really excited about that. I like to pull out, I feel like Sandeep, you stole a little bit of my thunder on these numbers here, but one of the best numbers on here is this LATAM. 60% of the local LATAM stablecoin market is on Polygon. And that's because Polygon was one of the first in this region and will continue to be the first in all of the regions that have historically had limited access to the global market, limited access to the dollar, limited access to currency conversion, limited access to being able to set up a new company and operate with consumers globally on day one without having to pack up and move somewhere for a startup ecosystem. So we're really seeing that these numbers are starting to glow, and we're going to see these numbers just skyrocket over time. I really love the unique addresses and that growth there. That's about, what is it, 500 million today. This is one of the fastest growing numbers we've got. This is just count of wallets on-chain transacting on stablecoins on Polygon. So to say we're just getting started, I think it's a bit of an understatement. When you look at this global market, we're not talking about billions, we're talking about trillions. And we're not just talking about trillions, but we're talking about hundreds of trillions. This number is about $200 trillion already that moves in the global money movement space. And then by 2032, it's expected to get to over 300 trillion. I think this is an underestimation of what this market is going to do. Because in the future, all local markets are going to be global markets, and that's going to be enabled through Polygon and through on-chain global transactions. So where's the evidence, right? What are the brand names? Who's doing this? Sandeep spoke to this a little bit, but if you look up here, Polymarket I think is a really popular one to talk about, but a lot of traditional finance on here too. JP Morgan, Santander, the issuers like Tether and Circle, these folks are leaning deeply into Polygon as the primary rail for executing their rapidly expanding and global aspirations. We're going to continue to see this. Flutterwave was a recent one, so sort of the Stripe in another part of the world, and Stripe is on here too. So just wonderful to see these initial kind of capture that's driving this growth today. I think we're going to put one of these tiles up at the next Money Rails next year, and this is just going to be 10x the number. We're going to be like having to cut logos out and making apologies to other companies for not being able to fit them up here. I like to talk about Polymarket purely from just a volume standpoint. We've got the 3 commas club here, 22.5 billion in total volume. Every dollar that transacts on Polymarket has to make its way in there first on Polygon, right? So all of these payments making their way into the system before they start to transact, which also happens on chain, into about 185 million total predictions. So this is a really good early mover example of where we're able to operate on chain and serve a global market with the Polygon ecosystem. And we have to scale to support this because the next generation of financial super apps are all going to require that degree of scale. We're all going to be in the 3 commas club when we're setting up these types of organizations because that's what happens when you reach the whole world. And so we're going to hit about 5,000 TPS in early 2026. Gigagas is going to push us to over 100K in the future. Already got some of the lowest cost transactions in the market. 24% of USDC addresses, we're ranked #1 there. That percentage is only going to grow, and you're going to see every stablecoin that you want to transact on on Polygon, easily transactable on Polygon, and easily swappable on Polygon. So what does it mean when we zoom out? Polygon is the go-to money rail for payments everywhere and anywhere. And so I'm really excited to continue on this journey. I'm really excited to be at Polygon and really excited to be here at Money Rails. So I'm going to hand it back to Sandeep to make some big announcements about some of the additional partners we're starting to work with. And I hope you all have a great rest of your Dev Connect.
Thanks, John. And one important point, John mentioned that we are now at 5,000 TPS. I mean, this is a big shout out to our engineering teams that we started the year with 200 TPS, and we have made 3 large upgrades in the last 6 to 8 months, where now our TPS initially went from 200 to, right now we are at around 1,500 TPS. We are slowly growing that TPS. And in 3 to 6 months, we expect our TPS to be around 5,000 TPS. And that is very important because 5,000 TPS means that Polygon will have like probably a larger TPS than Solana itself, right? So Solana is like a very popular, fast, high throughput chain. In next 3 to 6 months, we believe that we will surpass Solana in terms of the TPS. And then in 12 to 24 months, we want to go to 100,000 TPS. And that's where like Polygon will absolutely establish itself as a formidable layer, just like Mastercard and Visa for stablecoin payments. So some of the big things that we are doing, we wanted to announce some of these big things, and these are like, these are just beginning. Like in the last 3-4 months, if you guys have been following Polygon, so many things have happened on Polygon. I talked about Flutter Wave, Stripe doing their maximum amount of volume, and then you will see some big heavyweights in the next one. So first one to announce is, I think we already announced this, that Mastercard is launching their crypto credentials, which is like everybody has these .eth, .pol, .sol domains, right? Now you're going to have Mastercard native domains, and this is right now exclusively on Polygon. And you can have your own Mastercard addresses where you can receive and send money on Polygon. And I think we have a very small video for that. Let's go through the video. Okay. Oh. That's the next one, right? And this is really, really big. Like, as you guys all know, Revolut is absolutely a trailblazer in the payment space. And Revolut, although in the background, Revolut has already integrated Polygon, and there is already, we have seen $700 million of volume on Revolut on Polygon. And this is Revolut, like, this announcement we are now making public, that Revolut is using Polygon as their preferred or default chain. They have other chains integrated, but Polygon is their preferred chain for doing all kinds of payments and payments-related use cases. So this is a big moment for the entire Web3 industry also, that a player like Revolut is going all in on stablecoins, and we are really honored to make sure that we are playing a very important role in that growth. So that was the second large announcement from our side. Then at the end, I want to just reiterate on the story of Polygon. We started as to scale Ethereum. We started as a side chain when L2s were not possible. We were the first team to actually implement and show a full-blown working ZK EVM. And right now, the biggest, like, people don't realize this, that the biggest ZK L2 by DeFi TVL is Katana, and this is built on Polygon also. Like, a lot of Ethereum community members would be there, and they would be like, when will Polygon POS become the L2 with the ZK proofs and all that? And I've said multiple times, and I want to say again, that with the Polygon POS is known for its low-cost transactions, high throughput. And right now, even though the ZK proofs have become very, very cheap, but they are still not at the place where they can match the cost that we are providing to the user. We are like, right now, many of our transactions are 0.0001, right? And if we add ZK proofs, which are somewhere around, in 1 cent to 0.1 cents, that fees goes up by 10x. Right now, so we are expecting ZK proofs to go one order of magnitude cheaper, at least before we start integrating the ZK proofs into the Polygon POS. But for the other L2s, you already know, I already talked about Katana, then you know OKX's X layer is fully on Polygon. And as I was mentioning, that some of the large institutions that you're going to see, that they will launch on the ZK L2 of ours, the ZK L2 that we have built, that is going to completely change the narrative and the game for L2s in the coming months. So, we have, like, people still think Polygon POS because it's the largest chain, so they think that this is not L2, but Polygon has 12 chains with the AG layer, connected to AG layer, which are full-blown ZK L2s. And, with Polygon, like, we discovered some sort of PMF with the enterprises in 21-22. That is the most energetic part for me, that finally, in crypto, what matters is real-world use cases. The real-world use cases matter in crypto. I mean, even 6 months back, meme coins and these things were the most important thing, like, which were giving chains the valuations. But now the actual world utility, which is payments, stablecoin, and fintechs, is actually is important. And this is where our DNA is. And that's why I'm super, super bullish that Polygon will absolutely kill it in the next 12 to 24 months. You're going to see this. And then, as I said, that enterprises, even governments, I think many of you guys would have heard on Twitter that government of Philippines actually is posting their entire budgets and everything on Polygon. And right now, I'm not sure if the vote has already gone in or not, but there is a vote going on in Philippines Senate where they are deciding to launch their sovereign L2, and that L2 is right now in consideration with Polygon only. It's still not signed and everything, but it is being consideration on this. And I am seeing a lot of these sovereign countries are going to launch their own L2s. They're not going to launch L1s. They're going to launch L2s because L1s have a huge cost of decentralization. Like Ethereum spends $3 to $5 billion every year to get this decentralization. It does not make sense for everybody else to launch their L1s and then also spend this kind of money to get the trust. The ZK L2s give you that trust by just outsourcing from Ethereum. You just piggyback on the trust that Ethereum has created using L2 technologies. So you're going to see huge governments. Right now, I talked about Philippines. One thing I cannot talk, but there is an anti-government. There's a large country in the world where there is a government, there is an anti-government party which actually wants to throw the government off. And they have actually raised, I think, $100 million or something, and they also fully use Polygon only on that. So, I mean, it's a fully permissionless chain, so anybody can come and do transactions as far as they are not sanctioned. But that's also, we are seeing a lot of government activity happening on Polygon. In India, we saw multiple states are launching different things on Polygon. And just now we talked about Mastercard, Revolut, and everything. And with all this, as I said, that Polygon, hopefully, Polygon is striving hard to become the money rails of stablecoins and payments in the Web3 world. Thank you, everyone. That's all from my side.